As you may know, on the bulletin cover it says, called at any age, every age. Well, today I want to tell you about my calling to serve God. So what is the meaning of a call? It's a summons or a strong incantation to a particular state of course of action, especially a divine call to a religious life or an entry into the priesthood or religious leaders. My calling ministry all started about 6 years ago, maybe longer. Our class was known as a troublesome group of kids towards the music and drama teacher. It was a typical school day, and we went to music class. And at that point, we were playing our recorders, and I was terrible at it. We had a lesson book that reminded us of karate, where you start at white belt and work your way to black belt. I did not make it past the yellow belt. Then after that, we got done playing with our recorders. Then the music teacher started teaching us about rhythm, and the class started causing problems. She started to get upset at us and tell us that we are all going to be high school dropouts. Then our class told Miss Weaver, that was my 6th grade homework teacher, after music class, that was going on, what was going on, and Miss Weaver was like, well, let's call the principal. And the principal came up to our classroom. The principal asked us who felt like there were going to be high school dropouts. So the principal told us to go each separate rooms. So she would tell us, dropouts here, if you felt like being a dropout, or you felt like you was going to make it all the way through. And then I felt like I was going to be one of them. And the principal was like, why do you feel that way? And I was thinking that the music teacher was always yelling and fussing, telling us that we were going to be high school dropouts. So that next following year, I started going to confirmation class. And I really enjoyed learning more about the Lutheran Church, and why we do what we do. The following summer, I went to confirmation camp at Luther Ridge. Really got to know God on a whole different level. Then later that year, we went with Pastor Anna and the confirmation group to see the Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary. I felt at peace at the seminary, and I knew God wanted something big for it. I had been feeling nudges and pulls, but didn't realize what they were until visiting the seminary. I was still conflicted with what God wanted me to do. My family sensed that something bigger was in the forecast. Then I even knew at that time they had mentioned to me, maybe God is calling you to be a minister. They started praying, and so did I. After confirmation, and I was confirmed, Pastor Anna left Sardis, and I felt lost again. And then Pastor Shaw came, and my mom and I emailed him about a month or so after he came to Sardis to talk about the pull and nudges that I was doing. Pastor Shaw stated that he had sensed that I was being called into greater things, as well as he hardly knew me. And then in 2015, the youth from our church, which included Cynthia and I, with our mom going as a leader, went to Winston-Salem to catch our bus to head to Detroit, Michigan for a week. The theme of that year is Rise Up Detroit. Before leaving, we were led in prayer by Pastor Matt Smith, which is Bishop Tim Smith's son. Pastor Matt was elected as our bus captain. That pretty much told us what time to be back on the bus by each stop, and was the leader to make sure all the other adult leaders had everyone on the bus. Which he would give us a weather check, morning music, and local news, where the people of Detroit were talking about their streets, that they were covered with people dressed as Skittles, making a difference in their town. We were called Skittles because of our bright shirts that we were all wearing while walking the streets of Detroit. He definitely gave us all something to get us pumped up for that day. While we were traveling to Detroit, I started using my leadership skills that I obtained through Scouts. And I started talking to Pastor Scott Bollinger and his group to see if our small group could partner up on his group for some of the activities, and he agreed that we could tag along on some of the events. Every night we met at Detroit Lions Stadium for end of the day worship. It was awesome to be at the football stadium and see it come to life, like it did with more than 30,000 youth and adults. Worship each evening was composed composed of various musicians, speakers, Bishop Eaton, other ministers. All the pastors stuck out to me, but there was only one particular one that stuck out the most. It was the pastor that was handicapped and was speaking to us from a wheelchair. That was the only thing holding me back from accepting the call of Jesus. During Sunday morning worship before we left Detroit to head home, I felt different and knew that in my heart I had finally accepted God's calling for me. I announced that call to my family when I returned home, and then a month or so later I announced it to the congregation when we presented it about the trip. But I figured y'all would probably knew it before a month before I presented it, because Grandpa knew. He told y'all. I knew he told y'all before I did that. Everybody has challenges and limitations in life. But my challenges and limitations are I have scoliosis, which causes my spine to have a curve. And I also have syringomyelia, which is buildup of fluid in your spinal cord that can lead you to be paralyzed. I've also had 10 surgeries in my lifetime so far. I don't let anything let me down. However, there are days I regret that I overdid things. I never regret helping others or doing what is asked. A lot of times I overwork myself by lifting more than I should and doing things that can cause my back to hurt worse. My mom and grandma would always fuss at me to watch what I do and not to overdo things. I always feel the best though when I'm helping others. My mom likes to remind me that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. I am blessed that God has called me to be a minister, and even more blessed that I have a supportive family and church family that will help me get my call accomplished. Now relating this all to Jeremiah. Did you think Jeremiah had nudges towards being called? I think he did, because I still feel the nudges quite frequently myself in my daily life. The nudges help me to stay on track for what God has planned for me. We're all called at least once in our life by God, and sometimes we are called multiple times. Sometimes we are called and we don't even realize it at that time. I have learned to keep my heart and mind open for God's call. We are all limited in what our abilities and skills are. Some of us are good with music, art, outdoor activities, also working with wood. Some of us are more physically challenged than others. Some of the ones that are physically challenged may not show it on the outside like me. We are all called to serve God in the ways that God has already planned for us. Jesus sets us to make choices based on God's call for us. Being able to keep your heart and mind open help you to choose your path that God wants you to take versus the path that the devil wants you to take. Thank you for allowing me having Youth Sunday and for allowing me to share my story of my call from